quit it and hit it.
Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew. Keith Johnson.
For some people, all it takes is a warm bath and a good meal.
Alan Seiler.
I'll have that good meal now. Thank you very much.
And Veronica Dashel.
Hi.
And this is our 120th episode.
Woo!
Yeah.
We made it.
Right.
Holy
In
cow.
Star Trek terms, we'd be near the end of season 5 by now.
As we'll see tonight.
Yeah. Well, we have a little tradition on the show. Every 20 episodes, we do the 20th episode, then the 40th episode, then the 60th episode, and so on. So we're up to the 120th episodes tonight. So tonight we'll be talking about those. But first, do we have any news this week?
No.
How about
Unless
this
there's
week
some that you know about that I don't know about.
Well, they just announced a new Star Trek game. I just saw that right before we started. It looks like it's going to be like a strategy game. And they just had previously released a new Star Trek game. So it seems like they're on fire with the Star Trek games all of a sudden.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, Keith, do we have some This Week in Trek this week?
Yeah, real quickly, because we got a lot to talk about tonight. These are some milestones. On the 4th of June, 1974, construction began on the shuttle called the Enterprise.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those who are of a certain age, who was around like I was, I remember, yeah, right, Alan. We remember that was not the original name for the shuttle, but literally there was a huge campaign by Star Trek fans to name the shuttle Enterprise because of Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And NASA relented, and it started to continue what could be a history into the future. Every significant vessel being named Enterprise.
But the crappy thing is that they probably would have called one of them Enterprise, but the fan write-in, like, got the first one named. The first one is a non-flying ship.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
They jumped the gun a little bit.
Right, exactly. Let's wait until the first one is actually going to go to space and then name it Enterprise.
Right?
So,
Next time.
You know, next
Right.
time.
And then, ironically, on the same day, 8 years later, premiered what is considered by many, not me, but many, to be the greatest of all the Star Trek movies, and that is The Wrath of Khan.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
if it ain't
again,
got whales in it, it ain't a great movie.
Yeah.
Alan is correct.
And again, I say this so much, for those of us a certain age, it was so wild because you knew Ricardo Montalban, of course, as Khan from the original series, but by then he was most known as Mr. Rourke, the white suit wearing guy on Fantasy Island. And he had such a genteel attitude. And then he came back as Khan. Like, whoa, oh yeah, that's right. That dude can do that.
Yeah, but the big surprise was ain't nobody knew he was built like a MFer.
Yes.
Like, I was like, dude, I didn't know you had all that package going on that island. Ooh.
I saw an interview with him, Alan, on I think it was the Today Show on NBC, and a lady was interviewing him, and she said blah blah blah, and then she goes, was that really you? And she literally said it like that, talking about his chest, and he being Ricardo, he goes, yes, that was me, and he was just so cool.
Of course he was.
Yeah, and two other quick things to honor. This one I thought was really cool. June 6, 1944. One more year, we're coming on the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Well, I think we probably all know who is also associated from the Star Trek family with D-Day. Really more than one person, but who I'm thinking about here is James Doohan, Scotty, who was injured in the invasion of Normandy. Some people may notice you can tell sometimes he lost most of his right middle finger in the invasion of Normandy. He was also shot 6 times on that day.
Wow.
And lived to tell the tale.
Yeah, Chris Doohan just posted a photo the other day of James Doohan and both of his sons going back to that beach on the anniversary. I don't remember which, maybe the 30th anniversary. I don't remember which anniversary it was. You know what? I think it was around like the early 80s. So it must have been like the 40th anniversary. But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I can't imagine going through that one time and then going back to visit again. That must have been such a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And of course, Gene Roddenberry was a pilot, and we've talked about there's so many differences between the original series and everything that's come after, even the great ones like TNG, and that's because so many of those people did fight in war. It wasn't just that they were Twilight Zone vets and science fiction vets. They wrote in a different way because they were part of that generation. They knew a different world than we even today.
Yeah.
Last thing, this is cool. 1967, 9th of June. You hear this, Matt Sweatman? The premiere, not the premiere, the first day of filming on what will become one of the most famous episodes of all time, Amok Time.
Okay.
Spock loses his mind for T'Pring.
I thought this was going to be another Taste of Armageddon reference.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, we'll take a quick break if you're listening on the audio podcast and promote a fellow ESO Network podcast show. But don't go away, because when we get back, we'll be celebrating our 120th episode. So stay right there. All right. And if you're watching with us live, we're going to continue on and celebrate our 120th episode. So
first of all, let's just say 120 episodes.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good run for any show, much less ours.
I can't believe you put up with me for that long.
Right. Well, the episodes we're talking about tonight are going to be Cost of Living, Children of Time, and Equinox Part 1.
Yeah, baby.
And if you've not listened to our previous installments, I mean, we did the 20th episode, the 40th episode, the 60th episode, the 80th episode, the 100th episode. And it's interesting to see how these shows develop over time as they go through their run. All right.
Matt Sputman wants to know what we're going to do when we come. So TNG, Voyager, and DS9 have 140th and 160th episodes. So he's wanting to know what we will do when it comes to 180. Well, I don't know. We'll have to figure something out.
Well,
if you've got suggestions for us, let us know.
Right.
Well, there's over 700, 800, 900 episodes of Trek if you combine all the franchises. We could just number them and grab one. Like 180 could be from, whatever, and then 200 could be from something else. That way we could go to 700, 800, 900 and never run out of shows.
Right. Well, if anyone has listened to this show for 120 episodes, you know that we have not planned it yet. Because we don't plan in advance that way.
You know what I was thinking about number 120? I was thinking at the time of the Federation in Star Trek, if you were 120 years old, you'd probably be getting close to retirement age.
Right.
So does that mean we're all about to turn in our notice and the show's going to be over in 2 weeks?
We'll see.
Anyway.
Okay, so let's kick it off with Cost of Living. Has anyone watched this recently?
No.
I have not. I think I saw it maybe 3 years ago.
Wow, that's recent for me because I don't think I've seen this since it came on. This is not one that I seek out.
Let me just tell you how long it's been since I've seen this one. When we were first talking about this, it's been over a month since we were like, we have to work in the 120th, and I first posted the list of episodes.
Right.
This entire time, I watched these 3 episodes 2 days ago. This entire time, I thought Cost of Living was the one where David Ogden Stiers kills himself.
Right.
But that's half a life.
Right.
So this whole time I was thinking, oh God, I don't want to have to watch that dreary episode again. So I was very pleasantly surprised to find that it was a fun episode.
Alan, is so funny. I had the same thing because I was watching Voyager, and there's 2 episodes of Voyager. One of them is called Night, and the other one's called The Void.
Yep.
And I keep getting those mixed up. And I thought
they're the same episode.
Yeah.
I think there's one called Darkness too. Don't quote me on that. That might be Enterprise.
But yeah, I thought this was a fun episode. I don't dislike Lwaxana Troy, but I don't love Lwaxana Troy. And so I actually enjoyed this episode.
Veronica, had you seen this recently?
Not, I mean, like when we watched it, yes, but it's not one I've seen in a while. I do know that I had seen it at some point before that.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's
Because
good.
I remembered the ending
Okay.
specifically. So it may have been that I caught it on reruns.
Yeah.
Oh.
in the early 90s.
Right. So when you say the
Let's step away
ending,
one sec.
when you say the
I'm talking
ending,
about the wedding.
oh no, I'm talking about the very ending. I just realized that when Chuck introduces us and we all say a funny line from the show, I should have said, "We're just supposed to sit here."
That would have been good. That would have been
So
good.
I'll say it now. So I'm going to say it, and then you just edit it in
Okay.
for the podcast. Okay. So what did you think of it, Veronica? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I really liked when they went into the holodeck with those like little weird characters. They were fun.
It was very labyrinth-esque.
Yes, it
I
was.
can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
My thought that planet's all like naked people and clowns. So
Yes.
I mean,
I'd have a great time.
right. I mean, I'm going to book my trip next week.
Right.
Naked people and
Yeah, what I liked about this episode is it's one of those. It had a really cool opening. I love the opening.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I commented on that when it started because
Mhm.
Veronica and I don't mean to pick on Enterprise, but when we're watching an Enterprise episode, I'll often comment like, "Oh, that was exciting," because they have like the lamest openings on the episodes. But this one, I was like, "Hey, this is a really good intro. Like, there's pew pew and an asteroid, and they're flying around. You know."
Yep. It's funny though because when and this happened a lot of times when TNG had a talky episode or a high concept episode, they would do the cold open with pew pew and setting it up like it's going to be an action episode, but it really isn't.
Right.
It's funny you say that, Alan, because one note I did take, and y'all know I've commented before that I sometimes miss when you don't have a B story. I just like an A story. This B story with the asteroid particles is literally like a different show. It feels grafted on. I mean, it makes no sense. And even when they're in danger, there's a weird scene. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. At one point, Data says something like, "Warp 9 will take us 5 hours." Then they're like, "We can't go any faster than Warp 6." And then Picard says, "And that'll take us, whatever." And Picard says, "Well, we probably won't be there, or the ship will be dust by then." And there's no reaction from Troy. There's no reaction from Alexander. There's no reaction from Lwaxana's would-be husband. It literally felt like a different episode. So I agree with you, Al. When I first saw it, I thought, "Oh, exciting." Then, oh, no, it's not. It's almost like they ran out of story. I would be okay if the entire show had just been Lwaxana as an A story only.
Yeah.
I personally love Lwaxana Troy. I have since the very first time she was on. And part of that is because at the very beginning, TNG was really taking itself super damn seriously. And it needed a kick up its own ass. And Lwaxana came in and just shook that show up. And I have loved her ever since.
Yeah. I like Lwaxana, but I mean, I wouldn't just go watch Lwaxana episodes, but I think she's a perfect role for Majel Barrett. I think that's the best role she's ever had.
100% agree. She's
fantastic as Lwaxana Troy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think I've watched this again just because it's a Lwaxana and Alexander episode, and I don't care for Alexander much at all.
No,
it's just the kid's fault. It just wasn't a character that I liked, and I really just remember the mud bath. But then, watching it again this week for the first time in however many years, I kept forgetting there was a sciencey plot going on. I'm like, oh yeah, the ship's in danger.
Right, which made no
that.
sense.
Yeah.
And Picard literally said, "I don't think we're going to make it." And then the next scene, they were there. It was really weird. One thing about Lwaxana, I don't dislike her. She sometimes honestly gets on my nerves because she's too over the top. When I like her best is what they did in this episode and what they did in the one you mentioned, Alan, and in the episode Dark Page, and in the episode DS9, which is when she gets to do some dramatic acting. You remember or you realize that all that's an act, that she is a very deep woman, a very insightful woman. She's been hurt. She's alone. She's a widow. And so the little scenes with Alexander, like the moment when she was kind of introspective and she was basically saying something to the effect of, "You make compromises. I'm lonely. I'm making compromises." I love when you mix that in with it. When she's just clownish, she kind of sort of gets on my nerves.
See, for me, it's the exact opposite, because after this episode, I get kind of tired of her because every episode they did after this was hugely sad and morose. and depressing, and that just doesn't fit her. And I mean, there were good episodes, especially the one about the daughter that Deanna never knew she had a sister. That's a
Right.
powerful episode, but it just
I
doesn't
have no
feel
memory of
right.
that.
Oh my goodness, poor thing. But I like, and there's no, not to say that every character that's a fun character has to always be a fun character, because that lacks dimension.
Right.
But I feel like there was that stretch from this one to the end of TNG where she just wasn't fun, and I was like, we need fun Loxana back.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what do we think about Alexander?
Nothing.
He's written, and again, it's not the actor's fault. He's written as a whiny kid.
Yeah.
He really is.
Yeah.
And I just think that's, they've said many times, and it's true, Star Trek in the main, until they got to something like DS9, they didn't know how to write for kids, and they didn't know how to write couples very well. I think Alexander's example, they didn't know how to write him as a kid because he comes off as really whiny.
Yeah.
And it's not
Some
his
kids
fault,
are
but
really
also-
whiny.
Yeah. But the other thing I did right, and it's all true, is, Worf is undeniably one of the most popular characters in all of Trek history. He is also undeniably one of the worst fathers in all of Trek history.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah. Well, at least by human standards. Yeah, I agree with that.
Right.
By Klingon standards, maybe he's a great dad,
Exactly.
Well, except by Klingon standards, he wouldn't be taking his kid to the therapist.
Yeah.
No,
so-
no, he'd have him killing something.
Yeah, which I thought, I mean, the whole therapist thing and the whole plan to, have a contract between parent and child, that seemed to me pretty progressive for that era.
Yeah.
At least in the part of the world where I lived. So I can't imagine my dad sitting through that meeting and agreeing to do a contract with me that he's going to do certain. It's like,
Right.
how about if I beat the kid? I beat the kid and
Exactly.
do what I say.
Exactly. And one of the reasons that I love Loxana episodes as much as I do is because they are also Deanna episodes. And this is one of those rare situations where her part of the storyline relies on her profession.
Yeah.
And you
Yes.
didn't get a lot of that with her.
Mm-mm.
She was always on the bridge for some dumb reason. I mean, doesn't she have office hours? There's 1,000 people on this ship. Doesn't she have appointments with anybody? But she's always on the bridge. So we
Right.
actually got to see her do her job and do it well. And she has to not only deal with Worf and the relationship with his son, but she has to worry about her mother, who's kind of coming in and undermining what she's trying to do. And there's that double play there, that double parent and child thing, and I just thought it was really well done. Let me get us a couple of comments because we got a few of them. Matt Sweatman says I felt like they had to tack on some sort of danger, even if it's not really what the episode was about. I mean,
Right.
yeah, because you have to strike a balance between the two, and you have to give something for the people not involved in the Loxana plot line, something to do. So yeah.
Right.
He also says Alexander doesn't have much depth. He's more to give some drama in having Worf fret about him not being a Klingon enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah, it's almost like he's a foil for the Worf character
Yeah.
and not a character in his own right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny when you said that, Charles, about parenting, because my parents, rest their souls, were old school, very good parents, but they were old school. And I consider myself being an extremely liberal guy, but even I'm sitting there going, if I had a kid, I ain't making no contract with no kid. You go in there and wash some dishes. That's kind of end the story. I'm not gonna give my kid a reward for doing this job. You better get in there and take that trash out. No way, I don't believe in that, which is weird.
Right.
That is
And
hilarious.
this is what, like 1991 to 92, somewhere in that
Yes.
range.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty forward thinking for that time. It's 30 years
It
ago.
was.
Yeah.
Right.
But-
And I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Elaine says the sciencey stuff felt like an afterthought. Oh yeah, it's a
Yes.
sci-fi show, must include science. This episode would have been fine without it.
Yeah.
Or at least have the A plot or B plot or whatever that involve the delegate guy. Like
Yeah.
he's a delegate from a planet. Surely you could have written some sort
Right.
of thing for Picard
Right.
with him. And so
Right.
it ties together. So it's not a separate thing. The ship's in danger. We may not make it. And then we're fooling around with clowns on the holodeck at the same time,
Right.
You guys are talking about how how Klingon. Can you imagine if a bunch of Klingon warriors saw Worf begging his son to do something and doing
Right.
a contract? Boy, would they make fun of Worf.
Well,
But
I think. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's what makes Worf so interesting to me is that him having to walk both of those worlds. He
Right.
wants to be one thing. He's in a situation where he has to be another thing. And that inner conflict of his, I find so compelling.
Yeah, I think they could have done a better job of it with Alexander, though. Which
I
I think
agree.
it's a good idea to have a Klingon warrior, essentially. But a lot of his life he was raised on Earth, and now he's serving with humans and having to sort of parent in the way that a human would, rather than using a pain stick or whatever to discipline his child, you know. But I think that could have been more entertaining and interesting. Usually, what happens though in these Alexander episodes is I just like Worf less, and I love Worf, you know.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I did like she kept calling him Mr. Wolf.
Yeah,
that's my favorite thing about her.
Yeah. I forget which episode it is later, but I remember reading this because someone else had noted this. Whenever there's an episode a few episodes later on when Loaxana is back on the ship, and she calls Worf Mr. Wolf, and it's Michael's daughter is such a great actor because he starts to correct her, and then he doesn't. And what you feel in the show is that he's like, okay, whatever. He gives up. She's just gonna call me this.
Right. Yeah, I like the storyline for her being an older, widow, and feeling like she has to make some sacrifices for the security. I mean, I guess she's probably got financial security, whatever that means in the Federation. She's from a well-to-do family and everything, but just not wanting to be alone.
Yeah.
But then sort of coming to terms with the fact that she shouldn't have to sacrifice that part of herself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Matt chimes in with, I think Worf also doesn't want to dishonor Kalar in the way she had raised Alexander.
No, we'll mention that then. I mean, I think that's a good insight, but I think that could have been something that the writers developed on the show is him trying to live up to what Alexander's mother wanted, you know? And Alexander's mother gets mentioned, but I don't know. I just feel like they didn't do a great job developing Worf's character through Alexander, you know?
Yeah.
Alan, you said something interesting I agree with too. The one they showed Deanna doing her job as a counselor, because to your point, I have never seen that she had a staff. She's on a ship of 1,000, almost 100 people. My God. She would be busy all day long, every day. Because there's probably like medical exams. You probably have mandatory counseling whether you think you need it or not. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that.
Yeah, but what I like about the show, one reason I did like it better than some Loaxana shows, is she and Deanna weren't at each other's throats where they were kind of going over the top arguing. Deanna expressed some realistic concerns about her mother. She kind of noticed that something was going on with her mother. And then at the end, I love when her mom comes in naked. Okay, I'm texting okay, screw it, naked.
Just say it your way. We all know what you mean.
Yeah. But she comes in naked. The smile on Deanna's face is great. Yeah, I was like, that's my mom, you know.
Yeah.
But earlier in the episode, when she first talks about her wedding gown, and Deanna turns around, she goes, "Mother, I can't believe that you're not gonna be naked at your own wedding." Right. I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, that's a cultural value to them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'll say that for sure.
Elaine says, "Naked."
Speaking of, I love this. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Matt says, 23-year-old me was intrigued by Deanna in the mud. 52-year-old me is kind of digging Loaxana coming to her own wedding.
The evolution of a Trekkie.
Also, I don't know if y'all noticed, but when the Loaxana came in, when she kind of smiled and did her head, her body kind of comes up a little bit, and you could tell she had a top on. You could just see that she had, obviously she wasn't fully naked.
Sure.
But what I love about it is I expected Worf to try to cover Alexander's eyes, but I think
he's already been in the mud bath with her for like half the episode.
Right.
That train has sailed.
Yeah.
Bandy Beth also says naked.
Awesome. Hey, Beth. I was pleasantly surprised with this episode because, like you guys said, I hadn't seen it in years, and I kind of sort of had a bad memory of it. And I'm sorry, Veronica. The only part of the episode I can't stand is that little world. That little clown face dude gets on my nerves. So did that juggler.
His facial features look like Odo.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Keith, why don't you like fun?
I am coming off as kind of grimdark, aren't I? I'm like, yeah, I like it when people get killed just like that.
Oh, I bet you wouldn't get in the mud bath with the rest of them, would you?
I just
Yeah.
sit here.
Just sit here.
And the higher, the fewer. I still don't understand that.
You know,
No, that doesn't make any sense.
it's a cute line.
Yeah. No, I liked in this episode that it was Loxana coming on, but it wasn't about Troy's love life or lack of
Mhm.
one or
Yes.
anything like. Usually, that's the impetus when
Right.
the mother's there. She wants to set her up with somebody, or why aren't you getting married, or something to do with Riker. And this, it was nothing
Right.
to do with any of that. It was her job and her friend. You know.
I will
Yeah.
I will say my favorite Waxana episode is Menage a Troy.
Okay.
This
That's a
one
fun
is might be my second favorite.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good time with this one.
Okay. Any closing thoughts on it before we move on?
It was fun and I enjoyed it.
Yes.
Nothing
All right.
serious, but it was fun. Elaine says that she was also thinking Odo, but didn't even know Odo yet.
Well,
Okay.
you're in luck because now we're talking about Children of Time, and that's a great Odo episode.
Yeah,
Yes, it is. Yes.
I love this one.
Yes.
Oh man, I hadn't seen this in a long time. Like I'm
Really? We
sure I
watch
have
this
not
one
seen it.
all the time.
I'm sure I haven't
you
seen it
did?
since it originally aired. Like this might be the second time I've ever watched it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Right.
We usually have DS9 on when we go to bed, and this has been in the rotation for some reason like 5 times in the past 2 months. I don't know. I feel like we just watch this all the time now. But
Really?
this is a great episode.
It really is.
They did a great job of setting up a cool sci-fi story that with real stakes for the characters and a real dilemma.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, all these people are not going to exist. But then you get the fun things about the sort of time loop aspect that you've got Dax there.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
like it is Dax. You
Yeah.
know, and then
Yes.
you turned out you got Odo there too.
Yeah, you got Dax, you got Odo. I thought that was interesting. When they were first setting up the thing, I had kind of sort of forgotten about the original plot was that they thought they were, he claimed they were going to make duplicates of themselves. And I wrote in my notes, even had that been the truth, would you have the right to duplicate yourself? Because remember, you don't know you're a duplicate. So even though you go away, you were stranded. Do you have the right? You know, should you do that to yourself, to another person, strand another person? There's a whole thought there as well. I thought, would I do that to another me?
I think
Yeah.
my opinion depends on which me I end up. Either it's like, you know what, I'll be fine, or like, curse me, I can't believe I did this to myself.
So,
Right.
so if you want to really get into that, read
Uh-huh.
the Bobaverse books by Dennis E. Taylor.
Those are good books.
They're really good
Yeah.
books and really good audio books.
Mhm.
And there's
Hmm.
duplication, and there's an exact scene where they're like, "Oh crap, I'm the copy."
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that could kind of suck.
Mhm.
It's some of the best acting I've ever seen in DS9, especially from Rene Auberjonois. Just
Yes.
the emotions on his face.
Mhm.
From the start when Kira talks about how she and is it Bareil? Bareil was the second one.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bareil had broken up. That look on his face,
Yeah.
that look
Yeah.
of kind of devastation and sadness, like what do I do now, was just powerful. He does some great acting.
Yeah, and the subtle changes they made to his makeup were really
Yes.
effective. With the curlier
Yes.
hair, the more human expression, sort of reddish, like he's been on this planet all this time, and he's become more. He has the appearance of looking more human than he
Yeah.
used to.
Yeah.
He has evolved over time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a
He's
couple
more-
of really good comments. Vandy
Awesome.
Beth says, Children of Time is one of DS9's best episodes, but it does continue the franchise's inconsistent approach to time travel stories.
Sure. Yeah.
And Matt says, like Strange New Worlds, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach, this one really was courageous in not going for a happy ending.
Mhm.
Yes, it goes for a very conflicted ending. I
Yeah.
love that. I love it.
And it's interesting to me that, I mean, after however many centuries on this planet, it's Dax who's conspiring to strand the crew there, like betraying at that point his crewmates, you know,
Yeah.
for the
I
good of
get
this
it.
colony that he's been living with for all this
Right.
time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too, and I thought it was interesting that when was it Jurgen Dax was talking about what had happened, Jadzia, the look on her face, you know, the guilt,
Mm.
because like they said, best case, Kira's gonna die.
Right.
That's a tough one. Kira
Sure.
at her own grave was wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a powerful scene, and Odo having lived without her all this time and regretted never having told her how he felt, and now
Yeah.
he's got the chance and just comes rushing in.
God.
And I love that he's just like, I don't expect anything in return. I just got to tell you.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
this episode has one of my favorite scenes for Star Trek that was written but cut before they filmed. And I tried to find the exact wording so I could read it, but I couldn't. But essentially, it's when Odo's talking to Kira and says that he lived for a century as a tree, and then he lived as a cloud, and it's just a really great view of Odo as a shapeshifter, just not just living as a person all this time, but just sort of going off on his own and just being a tree for like 100 years. I thought that was really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
For some reason, I knew that, but I must not have seen that.
Yeah, I didn't make it up. It's out there. I'm sure you read it.
Yeah, but it's so familiar. It's so weird. But she said almost, if I hadn't watched the episode today and you told me that, I would have remembered it as being in the episode.
Right.
But you're right, it wasn't.
What would have been really interesting had we got that included in the broadcast episode, if he talks about living for a century as a cloud, it's what following season when the head shapeshifter comes to the station and starts to tell Odo the things that can happen, like you can be a cloud, and he has never thought about being a cloud before, and it's almost like that would have set up, because our Odo isn't hearing the future Odo saying that stuff, so obviously he learned that stuff on his own. Somehow he came to that knowledge, and I think that's a really cool kind of cyclical thing there.
Yeah, that's true. One thing I thought was curious, DS9 is obviously the only Star Trek series that has dealt with religion in any real way, deep way, to acknowledge religion. I thought it was interesting about how Kira says that she and Baral went to the temple and basically asked the prophets if they were right for each other, and they were told no.
Yep.
I was raised a Christian. My dad was a preacher and stuff like that, but people pray for guidance from God all the time. But I was kind of like Dax, like, and you basically took what they said? Like, well, of course, they're the prophets. Wow. That's faith.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, that reminds me of a couple of people that I knew many years ago back in Florida. And this new guy moved into town and started hanging around with us, and was like, came to one of my women friends and said that God had told him that they were going to be together and spend their life together. And she was like, well, God did not tell me that.
Why would you do that? That is such a creeper move.
That's not going to work.
No. Elaine says that this episode reminded her of the Enterprise episode E2, where they met their descendants from an alternate timeline. But she thinks that DS9 did it better.
That is correct.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they were copying DS9.
Right.
They were like, hey, you know what worked really well on
episode.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and I go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm rolling on. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I really like it when these stories, when they'll take O'Brien, who's like an everyman, and he gets in these sci-fi situations, and you see how it affects him. They did the same kind of thing in Rascals when it's funny, everybody's 12 years old, but it's not funny when your wife's 12 years old. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the same kind of thing here, where he's like, I got a family back home. And they're like, oh, you got remarried. And he's like, I don't, like, it took 10 years, you lasted, but you finally, you gave in. And he just did not like that idea whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was super uncomfortable with all the mollies.
Yeah, what was up with all the mollies? I guess they didn't have time to show him with the lady, and I don't think you really need to have injected humor into this show. But I kind of wonder how he was acting around that other engineer that he ended up marrying once he went
probably avoided her.
Right. Yeah.
I do think that change of attitude in him was I mean, he was adamant about, we can theorize about what action to take all we want, but I have a wife and kids back on the station that I want to get home to.
Mm-hmm.
And even he swung around to, we can't do this. We cannot eliminate all these people.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't go ahead.
You don't buy it?
No. It's not that I don't buy it. I see it as being part of his character. I see it as being that Starfleet
Mhm.
mentality. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he came to it too easily, too quickly. I don't know. I mean, they had to do it within 45 minutes, obviously. But
Right.
Right.
I don't know. I
I-
mean, it was a good moment for him.
Mhm.
But still, can you imagine making
No.
that choice?
I actually cannot. And I think
Yeah.
Alan, I think dovetailing on what you were saying, Alan, I think this is one of those sometimes mini episodes where if they had simply injected more time,
Yeah.
maybe it took them a month to get off the planet instead of a couple of days. You could feel them because what they
Yeah.
tried to do, the emotional connection they tried to make was these people who were knowing they were about to die, still doing this beautiful thing of planting together. And I think that you're supposed to believe that melted everybody's hearts, including
Right.
Worf. But I agree
Right.
with you, it was so quick because to me, I thought that was a powerful scene. But honestly, what kept getting me and in my heart was that Kira was going to die.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I could have let that override my feelings for Kira, even for those
Yeah.
8,000 people.
Odo
Well, you
couldn't.
know,
Yeah.
right. You know, I think one of the strengths about producing content for streaming platforms is that you can make an episode as long as you need to make it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
An episode can be 35 minutes. And we saw that in either season 1 or 2 of Picard. One of them was like 35, 37 minutes. And then you
Right.
have other ones like some Discovery episodes that are an hour and 10. It's
Right.
whatever you need the episode to be to tell the story that you need to tell. Whereas in the old days, when you had that hard and fast 45-minute constraint, you had to tell a story that fit into that framework. And you
Yeah.
had to make the story fit. You had to,
Mhm.
you couldn't let the story breathe in a natural way.
Right.
All right, let me get 3 comments. Vandy Beth says Enterprise episodes are always the worst of any given type of Star Trek episode
Whoa.
because Enterprise episodes are what you get when you order a Star Trek from Wish.
Oh my God. I can't even respond, Vandy Beth, because I take too long. I adore Enterprise, believe it or not.
Oh, just you wait until we get to the Voyager episode we're going to talk about tonight. Matt says Worf got to shape some future Klingons. These were more evolved from his ideal of Klingon ethos and not that much like most Klingons in the galaxy at large. I would have liked to have seen that explored more.
Yeah.
Me
I was
too.
really intrigued by these Klingons that sort of kind of look like Klingons and don't look exactly like each other because they're generations down the road.
Mhm.
And
And
the
some
way
of them
that they
aren't
had-
even like partially or like
Yeah.
joined later.
right.
Yeah,
And
the way of
the way
life.
that they had sort of like incorporated teachings that had been passed down by generations, I thought it was really fascinating. And I would really
Yes.
like to have seen more of that.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually wrote in my notes that the Klingons could have come off as kind of cheesy, and they did not. They worked.
Yeah.
They
They did.
absolutely worked.
And they're better Klingons than the regular Klingons because they're based on Worf. The regular Klingons are not very great at being Klingons.
This is true. And I thought their leader had a gravitas about him where I would have
Mhm.
loved seeing him come back as a Klingon.
Yeah.
And I even bought it I love it when they said, "Kill us, Worf," to sit here and wait to fade away when
Yeah.
my parents are never born. That's not a warrior's death.
Right.
Yeah, I
love
loved that. But
Yeah.
then when it comes down to that last day and they're out in the field and they're like, well, we'll never get all this done. And then, like every good Star Trek episode, the Klingons swoop in like the cavalry and they're like, well, we're not farmers. We're not doing this. We are here to fight enemies. And Worf says, their enemy is time.
That was
I was like, dude,
Yeah.
you can make any situation Klingon-y if you just say it the right way.
Right.
All right, Matt says, continuation, I think. And it wouldn't have just been Kira's sacrifice. The rest had lives and families to return to. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, Cisco and Jake.
Well, one thing that I think what Matt is saying, because
Of course, maybe he just wants to get away from Jake.
Matt made a good point, and it's actually the point that O'Brien made earlier. And this is the point that I had written down, which is, okay, you have 8,000 people on this planet. You have, I don't know, 8 billion, no, 8 billion, 80 billion, 8 trillion, who knows how many in the galaxy. Those people are, of course, people die in war, but these people are critical to the war. And what about the potential millions of inhabitants, descendants that they have, hundreds of thousands over the years? It's almost like a Tuvix thing. Me personally, as tough as it was for the 8,000 people, I'd be thinking about the future of the Gamma Quadrant, the future of the war, and the people I already had. Well, again, what you were saying earlier,
Well-
Alan, Brian literally said, I don't know these people. I know
Right.
my family back home.
Right.
That's kind of where I stayed. And I think I would have left, and I hate to say this, I personally, questionable, but I think I was going to ask this at the end. I think I would have gone back as much as it would have killed me. I think I would have gone back because you can also argue that there's generations yet unborn in your other life.
Well, yeah. Yeah. And that's what somebody said. And they're like, I don't know those people yet. But keep in mind that at this point in the series, there has been no formal declaration of war yet. That
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
come
true.
until the end of season 5 and the beginning of season 6. And we are not quite to that point yet. I
Not
mean, you
quite
can
there,
tell
yeah.
that it's heading that way, but there isn't a war effort yet that these people are integral to. So I don't know that you can factor that into it.
Well, you're right. You couldn't in that case.
This really does, not you say that, feel like a story of wartime, even though, like you say, technically it's not wartime yet. And this is sort of separate from the Dominion storyline, but it's, you know, to accomplish our mission, to get back home, we have to let this town die, and them having to come to the decision that they're not willing to do that. And I think it's very Star Trek-y, and it ties in nicely with the themes of DS9, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. Matt says, does it always have to come back to Tuvix?
Yes.
Of course it does.
I mean,
yeah, you gotta decide which one you do. So what would y'all have done?
Oh, I was going to say, Wayne says, nothing to say yet, but hey, y'all.
Hey,
Wayne.
what's up, Wayne?
What's up, Wayne?
brother?
What would I have done? I would have let Tuvix live, because I'm just kidding.
No.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's like these people were created out of a time anomaly.
Yeah.
I'm not obligated to fulfill the time anomaly. It's my future.
I agree.
You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
it's like going to the future and then going back and making different choices. You know what I mean?
Right.
Except for it's the past.
If they had
Right.
stayed on the ship and they had not gone down to the planet and they had not got to know any of those people, they would not have made that same decision.
Yeah.
Right.
They would have done whatever they could to get back to the station, get back to their families. And it's just circumstances that sort of dictated what decision they made.
That'd be kind of a funny Lower Decks bit where they arrive at a planet like, we're your descendants, and like, ooh, let's get out of here.
Right.
And never meet
That's
them.
awesome. Oh, gotta be going, y'all. Take care.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I blame Cisco for letting Dax convince him, because you think about this, they already said they were tired and ready to get back home. And Dax goes, hey, there's this really weird planet with this really weird quantum anomaly. He says, is it safe? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think I can jury rig something. I would have been like, send one of them class 1 probes and keep on going.
Right.
Basically. Vandy Beth says, if the Kelvin universe exists, then the Children in Time averse also exists somewhere. Exactly. Exactly. And Elaine says, my thought was that the folks on the planet wouldn't know any different once the crew made it through the barrier. Exactly right. The timeline changed and they don't exist anymore. And it's not like you're killing them. That's what the episode keeps going to, is we can't kill these people. You're not killing them. You're setting the timeline the way it should have gone. And these people simply, I mean, they're not going to know that they used to exist because they don't exist.
Right. But dead people don't know either that they used to be alive because they're dead.
Of course, nowadays with the whole new quantum mechanics interpretation of time travel, this would have been considered an alternate reality. One real quick final thing for me on this. I had this really weird thing. I was watching the episode, and when Kira was being examined by Dr. Bashir, and he was talking about how we got to get you back to Earth, blah, 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 and heal you. And he kind of made a joke with her. I thought, man, they really are kind of, there was something going on there. Like there was affection. And I looked it up and I thought, okay, when did they actually get married? Because they were married for 4 years. And then I visited Alexander City. They got married 1 month after this episode aired.
Okay.
So, and I was just looking at it, like, man, they're really acting like they're flirting, not like they're just joking like comrades. It turns out that's because they were.
So they're really selling this.
No, basically, it's that Julian just takes advantage of any chick that's in the sick bay injured, because otherwise they just get away from him.
Yes.
Like, I've got you now.
Well, he was a little Julian, and he was kind of like, evidently, I'm a legend on this planet, and I have
Right.
there's a whole bunch of machines running around. Like, well, yeah, there's a little bit of that Julian still.
Yeah,
There
that's
you
still
go.
old school Julian. Okay, well,
All
let's
right.
move on then to Equinox. Now, we did a whole episode one time about the Equinox two-parter.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
um,
So everybody go listen to that.
right.
We examined it top to bottom.
One thing that struck me this time, and I don't know that I mentioned last time or that even occurred to me last time, was that, you know, it's sort of Voyager kind of takes the easy way out, letting Janeway be the superior officer. You know, Battlestar Galactica
Right.
did a similar sort of thing a few years later, where Admiral Kane outranked Adama. You finally
Right.
you're finally joining the fleet again,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
but you don't agree with the orders, right? But in this
Yeah.
situation, I wonder just how much more interesting it might have been if Janeway had been subordinate to Ransom,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
she had to make the decision of
Oh, hey.
I can't follow this guy's orders.
Because she's a new captain, and he's been a captain for years before.
Well, I don't know
this.
that she was a new captain.
No,
but,
she was. This was her first ship.
Okay.
Yeah, it was her first. It was her first.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was her first captaincy.
Right, but it's like 5 seasons in though. She's been a captain for like 5 years at this point.
Yeah.
You know.
Right,
But
but he was a captain before she was.
right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
But
She
then
also-
it sort of introduces the conflict of like we're so happy to finally have the fleet again, or have some sort of semblance of Starfleet again. Uh-oh.
Right.
But then there's some conflict for the crew as well of like, no, like we finally have a superior officer, and Janeway's going rogue and trying to strand us in the Delta Quadrant again.
See,
you know,
that would have been the interesting point,
Mhm.
because there has, you know, in the first season or two, they did do that with Seska and a little
Right.
bit with BLT, even though she wasn't called that at the time, about
Right.
them disagreeing with Janeway's insistence on sort of staying and exploring and not taking every action you can take to get back home. And that would have been a really good angle in this story to sort of renew that distrust, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
that disagreement. Maybe there could have been at least one, if not a couple of Voyager personnel who might want to go and be with Ransom's crew, because
Right.
we're tired of this nonsense. We want to go home.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can see some of the Maquis, because you cannot assume that
Yeah.
all of the Maquis were basically upstanding citizens like.
Oh wait, were there
Maybe.
Maquis on the ship? Because they haven't mentioned it in 5 damn seasons.
No
Right.
kidding,
So
yeah.
I mean, that
They
was
got-
an
yeah, they
interesting
got
thing
this
at the
right.
very beginning, and then they just forgot all about it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I thought it was funny to see what's his name, Titus Welliver, who now is famous as Bosch,
Mhm.
and you see some of that kind of, for lack of a better word, there's almost a brutality in him, and you definitely see it in the second episode. You see why that actor became Bosch, but just there's a way he acts that is interesting. And I thought it was very interesting when Janeway immediately goes to, "Hey, I noticed that you let your crew call you by your first name," and I found myself agreeing with Janeway, because there's something they say all the time. Even Chakotay has said this: we're not in Federation space. Do Federation and Starfleet rules apply? Well, you know, morality and ethics are supposed to apply wherever you are.
Yep.
Right.
Just because you're not near a starbase doesn't mean you give up. And I love it when she said, if we do this, we stop being humans. And I think, even though, like you guys said, we just reviewed this, I was horrified when I heard Ransom said, I only have to kill 63 more of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, how many has he killed so far?
Yeah.
Boy.
And you mentioned the first name thing. I think that's a really, because you get so used to by this point of the hierarchies on Star Trek
Mhm.
that, you know, just hear people call, and I mean, it's different when it's like Spock calling Kirk Jim, you know what I mean,
Right.
than it was if Chekhov was like, hey Jim, and you'd be like, something's wrong with Chekhov, like something evil's
Right.
going on, you know.
But he also never called Jim in an official capacity. They weren't
Right.
on the bridge doing their job. They were always like
Right.
in the break room or the ready room or whatever. And then
Right.
that's when he would say Jim.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's I thought it was a very effective way to, it's unnerving, but also it just feels weird.
Yeah.
And it just
Mhm.
it's a good indicator that something's up with this crew before you really
Right.
find out what's up with the crew.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I thought the two actors, and I'm blanking on their names already. The black man and the blonde lady.
Okay.
I thought they did really good subtle acting.
Mm.
You can tell, like Rudy and his first in command, they don't seem to be as morally broken yet as the others. But those two, you can tell they're struggling.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, because he said, he actually said later on when they were discussing basically betraying Janeway, he said, "Why don't we just go ahead and join their crew and try to forget what happened here?" And that's when the captain says, "Oh, a warm bath and a nice meal. I guess that's all it takes for some people," which I find very interesting because he is literally saying, all it takes for you to betray your crew, which is committing murder, is a
Right.
warm bath and a meal. Like,
Right.
you know,
Yes,
that's the kind
yes,
of
it
stuff that
is.
happens. You know, that's the kind of stuff that happens sometimes with certain groups like the police and stuff, where loyalty to the fraternity takes over
Mhm.
loyalty to the people and your
Mhm.
principles.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I thought
absolutely.
that was good.
So
Yeah.
the guy you're talking about is Rick Worthy, and he's
Mhm.
done a number
Yeah.
of Star Treks.
And Battlestar
Yeah.
Galactica.
And that's true in Battlestar. He
Yeah,
was
he's a
actually
Cylon.
on Stargate SG-1 as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's right. Maybe that's why he was so good. He felt natural in the role. You know,
Yeah.
I wish I could have seen. And I'm jumping ahead, but this is one of those that appears on, like, when people talk about this on Facebook. This is one of those what the heck happened to them things later on, because we all know at the end a few people survived, but we never saw those folks again.
Right.
And I
Right.
would love to see that. So I thought that was good. And I thought it was interesting when Chakotay was commenting with the lady, and she basically said that thing, which is you don't think about it. She tried to focus on her work and think about the science and not the deaths that they were doing.
Yeah.
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 I thought she was really good though. And
Yeah.
I like that scene in the turbolift, even though like the turbolift, if it was making that noise, I'd get out too. I don't
Yeah.
blame her. Like the turbolift never sounds like
Yes.
that.
No.
Why is the
It has
turbolift
never-
screaming?
It has never sounded like that in 50 years of Star Trek, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, when that lady shows up,
Like when Picard and Data were in the turbolift and I had to like get off real quick, it wasn't as scary as when she was on the turbolift when it was making this strange sound.
right?
Oh, I thought that was funny. That was good. I noted that too. And he was like, "Don't worry about it. It's just the gravity relay."
You know it does that. Like when?
My buddy
Yeah.
Ed Degree, who rarely watches our little live things or doesn't comment, also agrees that was unnerving. So, hi Ed, how are you?
Hey,
Yeah,
what's up, Ed?
Welcome, Ed. We're glad to have you. Okay. Well, we're about 8 minutes out. Did anybody have any closing thoughts about Equinox?
I think I find it interesting that the star of the guest star of that episode is John Savage, who is famous for the Deer Hunter,
Right.
among other things. And the Deer Hunter is all about Vietnam veterans who come back and who can't function in the real world.
Oh yeah,
Because why? Because they've done things that they can't live with.
Mhm.
And here
That's
he's a guy.
that's a very interesting observation.
Yeah,
I
and
never thought of that.
Yeah, and he's such a good actor. He's to this day he's a really well-renowned movie and theater actor, and he has a really low-key performance that I think lesser hands wouldn't work, but it works for him. I also find it interesting. This is something else I found interesting because I wonder if he would have gotten in trouble with Starfleet for this. He said they encountered a race who told him he was in their space, and he was like, "I went through it anyway," and he lost half his crew, just like.
He lost half his crew because of an action he took. So
Yeah.
they're doing all this stuff because they have been beat down so bad and their ship is in such bad shape and they haven't had food in 2 months and they haven't had a shower in however long. But it was his initial action that started this whole chain of events.
Right.
That put the crew in the situation that they're trying to get out of.
Yeah. And they all sort of had fallen into the trap of, in for a penny, in for a pound. Like everything that we've already done is for naught if we don't just stay the course and keep doing it. You know?
And what the hell's going to happen when they get back to the Federation? You think that Voyager was tough on you? For God's sake, when you get back to the Federation, you don't think you're going to get put in jail forever?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
What are you trying to accomplish here?
Yeah.
Unless he assumed that he said at this point they were 35,000 light years from home. So for Voyager, it would have been 35 more years. I don't know what the heck he was expecting, that Voyager was 35 years away, maybe get destroyed on the way home. Because I agree with you, Alan. That's they're committing mass murder. They violate the prime directive. Oh my God. Yeah, they're locked up forever. That's just kind of the story.
Right. Wayne says, don't forget that John Savage was in James Cameron's Dark Angel.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I never saw that. Should I go and watch that?
It's okay.
Okay.
I didn't love it.
I ain't got time to watch it anyway, so
Yeah. I don't love
I got
Jessica
too much
Alba.
other stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, those were
He's a
3
good
good
actor.
episodes. I was surprised.
Mhm.
I wasn't that interested in watching the TNG that I thought we were going to be watching. I didn't have any
Mhm.
interest in watching that again. And the DS9 one, I didn't remember being nearly as good as it is.
It's so good.
So good.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed this rewatch.
Well, yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
Mhm.
Same thing. I did not expect to like it, and I've seen it a billion times. That DS9. I mean, that both of those episodes, the DS9 and the TNG, but they both had greater impact on me. I don't know if it's because I've gotten older. People talk about you watch Star Trek enough stuff that you didn't care for when you were younger. You start appreciating it more. They
Yeah.
they resonated with me, all of them.
Now I just
Hey,
want to
one
say,
quick thing.
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. One quick thing I want to say real quick about this episode. One scene I absolutely loved is when Janeway came after the captain. He said, "Please, Captain, show my crew leniency." And here
Yep.
we go, that famous line. They were only following orders.
Yep.
And Janeway said with a coldness that only she could have, "Their mistake."
Yeah, I
Yep.
love that line.
I
Loved it.
loved that.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yes.
I'm
All
going to
right.
say that if 20 episodes from now, 20 of our shows from now, when we talk about the 140th episodes, I get to talk about one of my absolute favorite episodes in the entire franchise. I'm
Awesome.
so excited.
Body and soul.
You don't be trying to wind me up like that, Buster.
All right. Well, next week though, we're going to be talking about the season 2 premiere of Strange New Worlds.
Yes.
It's
So
upon us.
excited.
It's
Yeah.
here.
5 a.m.
Yep.
Cannot wait.
Mhm.
Oh, I meant to make you guys a promise, and I don't know if I can live up to this. I am going to try really hard not to criticize and keep belly aching about the existence of a descendant of Khan.
Thank you.
I'm gonna try not to complain about the Gorn.
Thank you.
I can't promise that.
I'm gonna try not to complain about Kirk. But I think it's hard because he doesn't even know how to use a turnstile door. I'm gonna try, but I don't know if I'm gonna last.
We should make it a drinking game, and we'll all just be hammered by the end.
Yes, let's do it. Yes.
I think that would be fun. Everyone take a drink every time Keith reacts to Kirk on the screen.
Or every time he complains about the science not being good.
Oh,
Yeah,
we won't make it.
We'll never
I'm
make
trying to
it.
steal
Somebody have to
myself.
turn it off for us.
I try to steel myself for that.
Right. Oh, it looks like it's going to be fun. So
Yeah.
probably next week we'll devote the whole episode to talk about the premiere of Strange New Worlds.
Oh,
But
100%.
I mean, send us in some questions of the week if you've got them. We need some
Yeah.
new, fresh questions of the week, and that way, if we run short on the topic, then we've got a question of the week we can pull out. You can either send them to us on Facebook, you can send them to us on Twitter, you can email them to us at earthstationtrek@gmail.com, or you can call the Earth Station Trek hotline
Yes.
at 307-387-1701. And you hear a cute little message from Veronica. Nobody will answer. And you can leave your message and we can play it on the show and have your question of the week with your own voice on the show. And then we can respond to it.
Yes, please do that. We want to include your voice on our show. How much fun would that be? How long have we had this phone line and not one person has called? Somebody,
Wow.
please call.
One person called. It was me.
and it worked out so well.
Yeah, it was nice. So
it was super cool.
And now if you happen to be outside of the United States, then there may be like international calling rates or anything. So if you ever wanted to just record yourself as an MP3 and email it to us at earthstationtrek@gmail.com, we can take that too. Just keep it concise. We don't need a half hour on the topic. Just, get this your question of the week, or if you have an opinion or something you want to get out there, send it to us. We'd love to play it on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. Alan, where can people find more of you?
I have another podcast called Modern Musicology, and we are currently recording episodes, a two-parter about the music of 1983. So all the things that have 40th anniversaries this year, and there is a lot. 83 was a huge year for music. That's why we had to do 2 episodes on it. And then I've got another podcast called Doctor Who A to Z, and we just recorded last night a new episode reviewing the final episode of Jodie Whittaker's first season, and that'll be out tomorrow morning. So go look for that.
Quick question, Alan. 83 good year for music. Was 84 considered the excellent year for music, or was that the year for movies? 84 was considered such an awesome year.
I mean,
that music as
82
well?
through 85 was huge for entertainment.
Yeah, because Prince was around there with Purple Rain and all kinds of stuff was going
Right.
on. So,
Right.
I remember that. That sounds like a good one.
Oh, can't
Right.
wait till we get to 84.
That's when Star Trek 3 came out. So,
There you go.
all right. How about you, Keith?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups. And also coming out in a few weeks, I just recorded a podcast with the 42 cast, and we talked about film critics. Are they needed still?
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
Great
Awesome.
That's an
conversation.
interesting topic.
Yeah, I'll check
Yeah.
that out. All right. How about us, Veronica?
Feltnerdy.com.
Yep. And if you happen to be in the Knoxville area this weekend, we'll be at FrankenCon performing a family-friendly monster show. And then the following weekend, the 17th, we'll be here at the Sandy Springs Library in the Atlanta area doing a show at the Sandy Springs Library, also family-friendly. And then next month, on July 22nd, we have a not family-friendly show we're going to be in, the Sinful Variety Show, which is burlesque, drag, and we bring the puppets, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So come out and see Felt Nerdy. And then where else can they find us, Veronica?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
That's right. And we just released an episode interviewing the Monkees touring bassist, John Billings, which is great. He's performed with Donna Summer. And
Thank you.
I know, I caught myself. And Winona Judd and Rick Springfield, in addition to Mickey Dolenz and the Monkees. I mean, he's got a lot of great stories. He's been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
And then up next, we have an interview with Amin Zarukian, who is the guitarist for the Monkees touring band. So these guys have great stories. They're a lot of fun to talk to, and they've been great to come on the show. We've got a series of these coming out. So check out monkeyingaround.com for that.
You know, based on what you said, it's always interesting to me that if you don't know a lot about music, you find out that some of the most famous and incredible people and stories are all the people you don't know about. The drummers, the bassists, it's like there's a documentary called 20 Feet from Stardom about the women.
Oh my
who were
God.
back.
I love that film so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you guys say all this stuff, it's like there's all these people who have these stories. It's not just Mick Jagger, it's all the people who were with him.
Right.
There's all these great stories to be held. So I'm going to listen to that.
That's why when I was emailing the Paramount people about us getting possible guests to interview, I was like, you can send us someone from craft services. You know, I'll take that because
Seriously.
I'm sure those people have some stories.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Veronica, do you have a closing for us this week?
BLT.
Hey, that's good. Good job.
Oh boy. All right. See y'all next week.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thanks.